Good afternoon to everybody. Some of you know me, and I know some of you. I'm going to apologize right up front if you get a crick in your neck trying to look at that screen. It's a little bit off kilter, so just twist it the other way. We should be okay for 45 minutes. A couple of things before we get started. We have 2 evaluation forms. That's how important this workshop is, all right? One is from your conference, and we're going to ask you to fill that out when the presentation is done. I am very much into reputation management, as are most of us these days. So this is important for the conference. This is for my personal perusal and for my company. I want to get some feedback from all of you. And yes, if you put something positive down, it may show up somewhere as a reference for this particular workshop. So please make sure before you leave that you do fill both of these out. Just leave them at your seats, and we'll make sure that they get collected. The other thing I've provided for all of you is a workbook to go along with this presentation. I don't want the information that I share with you in here this afternoon to stay in this room. And for my other fellow presenters at this conference, you came here to learn. I know we're in Las Vegas, but we still came here to learn. So I'm going to carry this through to all of your all the presentations that you do attend. Take notes. I can only speak for my own presentation, but I'm going to challenge you to take this information back to your stores and then have discussions about the material that we're sharing here with you today. Because if it just stays in this room, then there is really no reason for any of us to get together. My goal is to help you make some changes at your stores, specifically as it relates to acquiring inventory for your dealerships. This is bugging me, so hang on a second. There's a little knob here, and I'm going to take care of that as quickly as I can. Going up, going up. That's much better. How's that? Everybody stiff neck going away? That's better. Probably wouldn't have bugged anybody else in this room but me, and I'm not even looking at it, but I know we're on camera. Say that again? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Anyway, there's a lot of talk out there in the industry about there's no inventory, we can't get inventory. I'm really looking forward to sharing this information with you as independent automobile dealers, and this is part of the challenge. The franchise dealers are putting a lot of effort into this, a huge amount of effort into acquiring inventory directly from consumers rather than the traditional sources like the auctions and so on, which is then making it even more difficult for you guys. Guys is generic, I do know the difference, okay? But it makes it more difficult, even more difficult for you to get inventory. So what I want you to look at is some of these successful strategies that both franchise and independent dealers are using to get not just any inventory, but the right inventory at the right price that you can sell and make a profit. And I think that's a pretty good job description for all of us in this room. So what we're going to cover today is a couple of key things. We're going to look at the opportunities that exist, but we're also going to look at the challenges that are out there in our marketplace. And if we're going to look at challenges, obviously I need to give you some solutions. So what we're going to show you is 4 unique ways that will help you build revenue through this, what I call direct inventory acquisition channel, where you have opportunities to get the inventories you need that you can sell on your lots. And the 4 things we're going to cover, that first word there, transparency, pay close attention to it. I think we can all agree our industry has changed over the years. I was selling cars and running dealerships. Those of you who don't know me, I should have introduced myself up front, but I have spent over 30 years in our business, many of those on the retail side, salesperson to general manager. I left the retail side of the business just as the internet was starting to impact and come to what it now is today. I walked into a dealership one day and I met my first internet manager at a store, and I went, something's going on here. I quickly bought a computer and learned what was going on and figured it out. Had my own consulting business for a few years, and for the last 10 years, I have been with Autotrader.com as their Director of Industry Education. So it gives me a huge opportunity to take what we know about consumer shopping behavior and the research that we have available, and then share it with our audiences so that you can take that information and do a better job when you go back to your stores. Not a plug for AutoTrader, that's not why I'm here, but thank you all for your business. We are in this together. It's got to work for both of us, and obviously it's got to work for the consumer. So you're going to hear a lot more about this word transparency. The way people shop has changed completely because of the internet, and there's nobody in this room that can debate that. I will tell you, 7 or 8 years ago when I talked at your conference, some of you were in this room telling me, we don't need the internet, it's a thing of the past, our customers don't have computers, they're not using it. Well, we've proven that to not be the case. And there's more information out there than ever before, but not just for the consumer, but for us as dealers also. So they don't have the advantage. It's kind of leveled the playing field. But I'm going to show you how to use this transparency to work towards your benefits. We're going to look at tools that we can use to stock the right inventory. And what's the right inventory? The vehicles you can buy at the right price that will sell quickly and you can make a profit on them. Plain and simple. I make everything sound simple. All I have to do is stand up here and talk about it. You guys have to actually go out there and do it. Okay? We're going to talk about the processes at your stores. This is the section where I want you to be able to go back. I don't care if it's you and one other person at the store or you've got a big operation going on. Have these conversations and look at the processes that are in place at your stores. Do we have a process in place that assists us in getting the right inventory? Our jobs have changed. Our jobs are no longer just to sell vehicles. Please put this in your notes and take it back to your stores. Your jobs are now to obtain vehicles, and you have to work just as hard at that, because if we don't get the right vehicles at the right price, we don't have vehicles to sell. We don't make the money necessarily getting the vehicles. We got to get the right vehicles to sell them. And then we'll talk about some marketing strategies that you can also put in place that should be able to help you get more inventories at your stores. So first, let's look at the opportunity, all right? There's two sides to this coin. Obviously, interest rates are the lowest they've been in a long, long time. They can't get much lower. I wish I could say along with that credit was readily available. So there's the challenge. Interest rates are really low, but then it's tough sometimes for us to get our consumers financed. So there's a challenge built into that opportunity. Finally, used car prices on the wholesale side have started to come down. Started to come down. I need you to understand this, though, all right? They've been so high for so long because new car sales have been held back that even if they're starting to come down, they're still way, way up there, if you get my drift. So we can't necessarily go, well, finally they're coming down. No, let's wait till they get back to where they were pre-2008 levels, and then we can have a celebration about it. But yes, they are finally. We're seeing sales rates going up. We're seeing more availability than we have in a while, but it's still going to be a while till we reach the levels that we were used to before. This is a great opportunity. There's this built-up, pent-up demand. Consumers have been putting off making purchases for a long time, and therefore they have put off trading in their vehicles and selling their vehicles because they're keeping the ones that they have. But this pent-up demand is finally loosening up, and people are realizing, wait a minute, you know, and what we're seeing more and more of is people are getting to that point where I need to buy a car versus I want to buy a car. And when that need starts showing up, we start seeing these vehicles getting replaced. This last piece here, this is tough for us as car people to understand. Now, I want you to notice those are two S's in there. That says hassle-free. not haggle-free. I am not promoting non-negotiated car deals. As a matter of fact, you'll see in a while I'm going to support those deals and help you negotiate to your benefit. But for today's consumer, because of all the information they have in front of them, they do want a hassle-free experience. And when you let it be known that that's the kind of experience your prospective customers are going to have at your stores, you're going to attract new customers, keep them coming back, and thriving in this opportunistic automobile industry that's right there on the horizon. We've come out of that. So we've got all of these opportunities waiting in front of us. And I want you to put a word down in your notes and just put a question mark next to it. And the word is culture. C-U-L-T-U-R-E. You probably could have all spelt that, but I want to make sure you understood the word culture. What's the culture at your stores? If you don't know, you need to define it. And if you run the place, own the place, you can define it, but you need to share it with everybody else. And I'm going to recommend that this hassle-free, attractive, transparent experience becomes part of the culture at your dealerships. So I started off saying, hey, I'm going to give you some things to think about and some things to go back to your stores to work on and work with and make some changes. I just don't want to be up here being a talking head. I want to make some changes, help you make some changes as you go through this. As I said earlier, this is today's consumer. Almost 3/4 of them have gone from purchasing, it's time to buy a car, I want a car, to we need a car. Wrecked, old, blew up, accident, or in the case of this family, they just can't get all their stuff in their old car anymore. So it's becoming a matter of need, which is a positive for us in this room. If we have more discussions at our stores, if we train our salespeople at our stores, when prospective customers contact you, to have conversations about what kind of vehicles they need versus what kind of vehicle can I shove down your throat because I can make the highest profit on it. Now, I'm not against profit, but if you show me a vehicle and I agree I need it, I will let you make more profit on it. And that's kind of the change that's taking place out there in our industry. You guys are picking up numbers. We're seeing independent. It's still slanted. I'm going to keep looking at you. We're seeing an increase when we look at the way used cars are sold in this country. It's always been about an equal balance between independent dealers, franchise dealers, and private parties. But we're seeing 2011, you actually got a bigger piece of the pie, which is good news for all of you here. I'm going to throw another challenge to you that's not even up on that slide, but it's something, I even talked to franchise dealers about this, so I'll certainly share it with you. How in the world can private sellers sell as many cars as you do? I don't have an answer. They can't get financing. They don't have a service department. They can't put a warranty on a car. They can't do any of the things that we can do as independent dealers and or franchise dealers, yet year after year after year, they sell as many cars as we do. I'll tell you why I actually do have an answer. They tell a better story. You have an opportunity through the breadth and scope and width of this internet to tell a better story. Now, we're talking about acquisition today. We're not necessarily talking about selling cars. But when I start looking at these kind of numbers, those are the thoughts that start going through my mind. So here's a nice thing also. What I'm seeing is as you're increasing your share of the pie, obviously sales rates are going up, but we're starting to chip away at some of that private seller activity, because that's where that increase is coming. Not seeing a decrease on the franchise side as much as we are on the private seller side. All right, so this kind of leads into this opportunity that exists for all of us in this room to get more inventory, to have more opportunity. And I want you to take a look at this slide. And what we can see is we did what we call, every year we do what we call a disposer study. We can look at people who have traded in or sold a car. We get 16 million or plus coming to our site every month. We can do surveys, and we find that approximately 43% of the people, when they disposed of their vehicle, they traded it in. 23% sold it to a private party. I want you to see the opportunities. This one we've already got covered, all right? But take a look at this other category. All right, I gave it to somebody, I junked it, I donated it, I returned a lease vehicle. 2% sold it to a dealership. Only 2%. There's the opportunity that's out there. So when we look at the 43% that are already trading them in, I see a huge opportunity on this other side to find more opportunities for you to aggressively go after purchasing these inventories, these opportunities from consumers. All right? And as I said, I just want to remind you once again that we're seeing the franchise side of the equation being very aggressive here. We're seeing the CarMaxes of the world be very, very aggressive in this area. And we can kind of sit back and go, but the more aggressive they get, the less opportunity we have. So this almost becomes a must-do. And we haven't really looked at it that strongly on the independent side of the equation until now. So I appreciate having a full house pretty much in here today. I think some people are actually asking me, what is this that you're going to be talking about? It wasn't even in their mindset until we walked into this room. All right, so opportunities abound. Nothing's ever easy. Many challenges out here for us to face too. Here's the challenges. We all know that as new car sales went down, we had less opportunity on the wholesale side of the equation, and what is or was available, I know I mentioned earlier that these prices are starting to go down, but what is or was available, this was March of this year, a 1-month increase. Average wholesale prices went up $700, all right? On compact cars, they actually went up even higher than that. So, and you know, it's that law of supply and demand. Look at the good side. They're starting to come down, but you can see that we're starting at a much higher level. There is a big shortage, and I'm putting this out as a challenge to you also. I don't know what kind of inventory you folks stock, but if you do stock late model vehicles, this is an area that you need to go and get really involved in. There's a real big shortage of these vehicles. The franchise dealers are looking at these vehicles as certified units, that we're all competing with each other. But that is a very popular, what we call near new vehicle. And with some of the processes I'm going to share with you in a little bit, maybe you have an opportunity to go after some of these vehicles also. And as I said, do not neglect this piece, because the franchise dealers are very aggressive with obtaining inventory. And you know, we get the inventory, then how do we pay for it? As I said, credit is very tight. Will probably remain tight for quite a while. You know, we're all thinking the economy's turning around, and one day the stock market's shooting through the roof, and the next day it's down here. And I don't really think anymore that the stock market is really a measure of what's really going on in the world anyway. Look at your own balance statement. I think that's a real good measure of what's going on in our world versus whatever else is going on out there. So, time to solve the challenges. We know the opportunities. We know the challenges. Let's look at some of the solutions. And this is the whole purpose of this workshop. How do you build your own inventory acquisition channel directly from not only your consumers, but from potential consumers that are out there? And obviously, when you can buy direct from a consumer, it really becomes a one-stop value proposition. Maybe that consumer that we purchased their vehicle from wasn't even thinking of buying a vehicle from you. But all of a sudden, as I said, there's now two pieces to this equation. It's not part of selling a car is to work out the trade-in. Maybe it's now, how do I buy your car, and then we'll sell you a car? Because that's how the consumers are looking at it. And what's happened out there, let me give you some advice. Start looking at your business. Start looking at your marketing. Start looking at your processes through what I like to call, share this with the other people at your stores, a consumer-centric lens. For so many years, and I've been around this business for a long time, we look at it through these dealer eyeglasses, and it looks good because we did it, we created it, we paid for it. Sometimes, hey, that's me, all right? But how does the consumer look at this? And be warned, if nobody else has warned you about this yet, there is a whole new generation of shoppers about to come into our industry. Echo boomers, millennials, Generation Y, call them what you want. I have a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old daughter. I guarantee you they are not shopping like the traditional customers that are coming into our dealerships today. And if you do not change, they will find somebody who will change. Plain and simple. And part of it is this whole transparency thing that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper. But when you do it the right way, we get more sales, we get more satisfaction, we get more loyalty. Everybody in this room loves repeat and referral business. How do we maximize wholesale profit by buying the right cars at the right price? Well, we don't make those mistakes and have those wholesale losses. And when we can rein in loss, we can make more profit on the wholesale side. All right, now this is, we've been able to do a lot of research. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with one of the products that we offer at Autotrader.com. It's called Trade-in Marketplace. It has literally revolutionized the way people are looking at trade-ins, but there's a benefit on both sides. If you want more information about our Trade-in Marketplace, certainly stop by our booth. But we're able to look at a lot of numbers and a lot of research and see what customers are. This is the typical customer who is making a request to have their car purchased through our Trade-in Marketplace tool. I guess my question to you is, how does this match up with your consumers? Well, majority of them are male, 70% are over 35, a little bit more than half earn over $75,000 a year. So it's just a picture. You know why I put that up there? What's your typical consumer? Do you even know? Maybe we should find out. Because as we understand our typical consumer, we get a better idea of how to message to them, how to market to them. All right? So here's the 4 tools that we're going to look at. We're going to look at transparency, we're going to look at stocking, we're going to look at in-store process, and we're going to look at marketing. So, this word transparency, I remember 15, 17 years ago, I walked into a dealership, met my first internet manager at the store, asked this person at the store, how's this internet thing working for you? And it's actually the reason I'm in front of you today. Any of you have met me before have heard me tell this story, but this is why I'm here. That first person who said to me, and this is what they said, these gosh darn internet customers, they're a pain in the neck, they know too much, can't make any money off of them, blah, 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 blah. And I still hear it today, all right? But a light bulb went off for me, and I said, our industry's changing. I want to be part of that change. And thank you, Lord, here I am today, all right? But you can't fight it. But as I said, yes, they have lots of information. And all of a sudden, we old school car people who cut our teeth on this popular word, control. Remember that word we were all taught when we got in the car business? Sit here, turn here, park here, follow me, sign here. Oh, the control's gone. No, it's not. Because we have as much information about the consumer as they do about us. And when you control the process and influence the consumer, we still have some control over it. So transparency is something, you got really 2 choices here. You either adapt or pull the plug. I mean, and that's not a threat, that's just reality. All the talk out in the industry is about how today's consumers are expecting this experience. They're demanding this experience. And as I said, this next generation of shoppers coming along, they will not do business with you if it is not this experience. It needs to be fast, it needs to be quick, and it needs to be transparent. Meaning, they can see and you can see what's going on. That glass, that transparent glass, does work both ways. So let's take a look at some of the tools that are available out there that the consumer has. And there's all of this information, and there's tools that you folks have where you've got a pretty good look at what's going on in the marketplace. I talked about Autotrader.com's trade-in marketplace. You know now that Kelley Blue Book is part of the Autotrader.com group of companies. There's a lot of new products that Kelley is going to be able to show you as independent dealers that's going to help you with this transparency. Kelley's always been a transparent tool that consumers have gone to get information about the car they want to trade in. And I remember even being a dealer, I don't want Kelley telling them that. But when the consumer knows, and then you know, and you guys can meet, it makes for a positive, transparent experience. So let's look at some of this. This is just an example of the trade-in tool that we have at AutoTrader, which is Trade-in Marketplace. And a consumer can literally go in, punch in some information about their car. They do an evaluation of the car, and they will be sent an offer, a bona fide offer, that they can either trade that car in for that price, or they can just bring it to one of the participating dealers and they will be cut a check for it. It's a pretty big move for us at AutoTrader to do this. We have a company supporting us with this. We've got an algorithm for the techies in the room where we have been able to pretty much figure out the risk factors involved. And as long as the car is in the condition that the consumer has described it as, then that offer will be valid. So the consumer starts off having an idea of what they expect to get for their trade-in before they ever even come to the store that's giving them the offer or willing to buy the car for that offer. Or you know a lot of consumers are using this tool and they're not going to one of the stores that is offering to buy the car for that amount. They're going to your store, and they're not telling you they know what their car is worth, and they want to see what you will give them for their car. So that transparency kind of, as I said, is a two-sided equation. And here's just a sample of the way that trade-in offer is made to the customer. If you want to see any more of this, again, please stop by our booth. We can walk you through and show you exactly how this works. I wanted to share this with you for a very important reason. This is one of our dealers who has taken this tool and used it to their advantage. All right? And this is a report that this dealer has put together, and I'll just pop one of these up here. He's looking at a car that the customer wants to trade in, and he sees that his book value, if he was looking up this car the old way we used to do it, all right, and what does my gut tell me about this car and whatever, he'd look at this car, and book value would say it's $13,675. He was willing to put $12 in it. Now the customer comes in, and he's got a TIM offer of about $9,000. So all of a sudden, this is a potential for extra profit. Now, it doesn't mean that this deal is going to get closed at $8,000, but you'll notice all of this is listed in here in terms of what kind of reconditioning has to be done on the car. And he literally follows this through on every car and uses the transparency that's out there and the technology that's out there to help him determine how much he can put in that trade. And he was willing to put 12 in it anyway. So maybe he ends up putting 10 in that car and still makes some additional profit before. So if you want to see how these types of tools work, because I don't have time to walk through too many of them in this workshop environment, please stop by later on this evening. We'll be glad to show you some of what goes on. Now, not only does it benefit the dealer, but this transparency builds a lot of credibility with the consumer. When you're sitting there, one of the toughest things for you as the dealer and the consumer is not always working out the price of the car they want to buy. It's getting them the fair market value for the car they want to sell. But when these tools are available, all of a sudden, it's not you determining what that vehicle is worth. It's the marketplace determining what those vehicles are worth. We get improved customer satisfaction. And when we look at being able to use these tools to purchase vehicles, we can see a higher quality vehicle. We can see more trades coming in. We can make quick adjustments based on what's going on in the marketplace. So it becomes a win-win situation. Stay tuned, it gets better. Yes, sir? Pretty soon they will be identical. Stop by our booth, we'll show you. Yeah. That was part of bringing these two pieces together. Kelly now has trade-in marketplace, so it's pretty much the same. Okay? So, when we look at the next piece of this, I talked about getting the right cars, finding the right cars, getting them for the right price, the right cars in your market. Now it's a matter of how do I find the right car? So I showed you the customer before. This is the average vehicle that is going through the TIM process. And again, I'll challenge you, go look at the last 3 months of your deals, the last year of your deals, and see what the profile of the vehicles that you're taking in is. Match them up with the vehicles you're selling. Look at the vehicles you're selling, and if we're seeing a shortage on the vehicles that we're taking in, then we can start putting some strategies together to acquire the right vehicles from our consumers. So, opportunity. When we looked at this disposer study, more than half of the consumers who disposed of their vehicles traded their vehicles in. About 34% sold the vehicle to a dealer. They didn't necessarily trade it in. And 9% sold, let's say, to a private party for cash. So we've got an opportunity in some of these areas for us to start obtaining more inventory. And the reason they got rid of the vehicle, why would I show you the reasons they got rid of a vehicle? Because when we get to the merchandising section of this workshop, I want to make sure that the messages that you're putting out there to your prospective customers, your prospective people you could buy a vehicle from, match the reasons people are disposing of their vehicles. Because if all of a sudden I'm looking at traditional advertising, or I'm even looking online, and I see a message from you about, that's the reason I'm getting rid of my vehicle, maybe I'll sell it to you. All right? So you can see here, the majority, because it's time for a new vehicle, I didn't need it anymore, better gas mileage, it was too old, I needed a different type of vehicle, or it was an economic situation where I had to start reducing some of my expenses. That's a very easy statement for me to make up there on the screen. Get the right vehicles at the right price. With the technology that's out here today, you can find the right vehicle for your marketplace, and at the right price. And I'll show you some of the tools that are available. If you haven't seen this, if you advertise with Autotrader.com, we can certainly provide this for you. Stop by our booth. We can actually show you this in your marketplace, whether you advertise with us or not. This happens to be a Florida market. Let me show you how this transparency works on the other side of the equation so you know what vehicles to be looking for. Let's take a look at the inventory in this market. And we've got 6 brands. And what we can see is of the total searches in that particular market during the month of February, the percentage of those searches that were for these vehicles. And then we can also look at what percentage of the inventory that's listed on our site makes up that inventory in that market. Now, those two numbers, without pulling something from it, doesn't mean a whole lot. But look what happens here. Ford. So I got a chance, I got a customer who wants to sell me their Ford. I got a chance to take this Ford on a trade-in, or we're having a meeting at our store deciding what vehicles we want to find. But notice what happens here. 10% of the searches are for Ford, 14% of the inventory out there is Ford. Maybe I don't want that car. We never had this type of information available to us before. I think about the successes I've had in the automobile business, owning stores, running stores, managing stores, and boy, I don't wish, because I'm very happy where I am, but if I had this available, these types of tools available, wow. And the point I'm making is there are more and more dealerships that are using these tools, and all of a sudden, if you're not, you kind of get left behind, and instead of thriving, you're just maybe surviving, and we don't grow by just surviving. Let's show you the other side of the equation. In this particular marketplace, 6% of the searches are for BMWs, but only 2% of the inventory is. And you know that. You've got that in your back pocket. And up pops an opportunity at your store to purchase or take a trade-in on a BMW. It's not the kind of car we normally want to stock. All right? But when customers go online to do a search, they don't care who you are. They're not going online necessarily to find out who you are. They want to look at inventory. And all of a sudden, that BMW that maybe had to step up a little bit to sell the car you wanted to sell, but all of a sudden you know that that car is scarce and you have an opportunity to make some profit on it. So, as again, stop by our booth. We can show you some of these local market reports. This gets a little bit more technical. I don't like to throw up a lot of numbers in a lot of different colors, but this is through the TIM tool that we have. Red means not good, all right? Green obviously means go, yellow means somewhere in the middle. What we looked at here is what vehicles are in demand in a particular market and where does a scarcity exist. Obviously, if there's a huge demand and there's a less vehicles around, that's a vehicle we want to consider purchasing. So there's a formula that's used, and it's based on what percentage of the listings of this particular vehicle shows up in all the searches based on how many of them are in the marketplace. 100 is kind of the mean line. So this does not index well, and this is not a vehicle, but look what happens with just a year. In that same marketplace, a 2009 Silverado has 111 shoppers, but only 2 listings, and that index goes through the roof. You can now look, see, and know what vehicles you need to be acquiring for your inventory. Imagine that. It's like having that magic ball. Now we can go even deeper. A lot of you are familiar with vAuto, another part of the Auto Trader group of companies. They have developed a tool called Provision, which is one of the most remarkable used car management tools I have ever seen. Many of you may have listened to or know Dale Pollock. He's a personal friend of mine. I used to consult his dealership when he was still in the car business in Chicago. But with a tool like this, this tool will tell you what cars you need, what you can sell them for, and it'll even tell you where you can find them because it's hooked up with all the auctions. This will not tell you what private party to buy the car from, but it will tell you what cars you need, and I'll show you the last part of this equation so that you can go pursue those vehicles from the private sellers that are out there also. It'll even rate on several different categories how a particular car fits into your inventory mix. So when we think of all the information that consumers have available to them, and we tie it in with all the information that we have available to them, all of a sudden we have a whole new opportunity to present itself to us. So here's what I want you to do when you get back to your stores. I want you to look at the process you presently use for trade-ins and kind of identify that step-to-step process. And please take this word back to your stores. And I'm not talking se habla español and we speak English. I'm talking about even if you don't close that deal and sell that car. Obviously, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you're looking for a car. We couldn't work things out, but we would love to purchase yours. So we've got to have kind of a shift in culture at our stores where we're looking at every opportunity to bring a car into our inventory that based on the prior section, we know is the right car that we can sell and make some money on it. And you know what happens when you agree with that customer and that customer agrees with you to sell you their car? They're probably going to let you sell them one of yours because all of a sudden that transaction becomes a lot easier for them. This requires training, and as I said, it may be you and your spouse, or you and your brother, or you and your best friend that run the store, or there may be 50 of you. It depends on the size of your operation. But it becomes imperative that everybody in the store is trained on these new processes, because when there's a process in place, we have more opportunity for success. I want that to sink in. So, here's an example. Mr. and Ms. Customer, have you done any online research to help determine the actual cash value of your current vehicle? Don't wait till it's the right step in the sale. So is there a car you're trading in today? And if we know there's a car that they're trading in today, let's get them to step right up and say, yes, I've been online. This is what I looked at. This is what I saw. And they may even go so far as to go, yeah, as a matter of fact, I've got this Tim offer from Autotrader.com that I am guaranteed to get this kind of money. Will you match it? And I find a lot of dealers are willing to step up even more to get that right inventory. So this is the kind of training that we need to do in our stores. Ask every shopper in your store, when they plan on disposing of that vehicle, do they have a plan, and can we help you? Boy, that used to be the line, can I help you buy my car? Now it's, can we help you, and we'd like to buy your car. Not every car, the right car based on the tools we talked about before. This looks like a happy bunch, doesn't it? Obviously, they're paying attention. I don't know what they're looking at up there, but they got everybody, yeah. Okay. Anyway, training becomes a big part of the solution. I would challenge the people in my store. Can they answer these questions? Well, I went online and I found out that my car or truck is worth more. Your offer is too low. I believe my car is worth. Well, what do you base that on? Well, I went online and, oh, so you did do some research on your car. Let's go look together. Let's see what the marketplace says your vehicle is worth. Would everybody please write down the following statement? If you haven't heard this before, I don't take claim for creating it, but it is very powerful. Documentation replaces negotiation. Documentation replaces negotiation. Used to be, my payment's too high. How much more can you put down? My payment's too high. Let's stretch out the terms another 12 months. Okay? You're not giving me enough for my trade. How much more do we have to give you for your trade to make this deal? And you're throwing money away. How did you determine that that's what your vehicle is worth? Let's look at it together. And you can document this in front of the customer because they've probably already done it anyway. And all of a sudden the negotiation is shorter and more profitable for both sides of the equation. If you use a trade-in valuation tool, run every customer with a vehicle through that system. Every one of them. If they're in the service department, if they're in saying hi, if they're in making a payment, let's find out what that car is worth. And that kind of creates this open dialogue. Last step in this process. Anybody in this room close 100%? Close every customer that comes to their store? If you do, I want to spend some time with you. Okay? All right. The customers who do not purchase, whether it be because of the trade or it's not the right car or we just can't come to a deal, don't forget about them. It's tough enough to follow up with them in terms of selling them a car. How about starting to follow up with them in terms of buying their car? What a change that would be. You're calling me to see if I want to sell that car versus, you in the market yet? All right? Or did you get rid of that car? Did you find a buyer for it? I'm a buyer for it. So offer continuously to shop their trade. I want you to follow up with these consumers, not only on the purchase side, but on the sell side. Reevaluate, contact the customer, and we get higher closing ratios, and so on and so on. Last step. If you're willing to buy my car, you need to let me know that you're willing to buy my car. So you got to be where the customers are looking. Wherever you advertise online, and this is where customers go to look for you and your inventory, make sure you're letting it be known that you will purchase their car. You're under no obligation. It doesn't mean you're going to buy every car, but you're in the market, you're in the business of buying and selling cars now. So let it be known that you're out there buying cars. A couple of examples of some independent dealers who do a pretty good job. This has got the Texas theme to it. Whether you buy ours or not, we want yours. Cash for used cars. We buy used cars. Even on Auto Trader, this is actually a new car listing. And we have a dealer over here who's an independent dealer who's purchased some display advertising, and he's talking right here about making an offer for the trade-in. So if this customer's looking to buy a new car and sees that this guy's willing to buy the car, maybe those two pieces come together. I've seen dealers actually produce videos. If you're not aware of this, YouTube is the second most popularly used search engine by consumers today, second only to Google. And this next generation coming along don't use Google. They use YouTube. They want to see it, hear it, and feel it. So how about a video about we'll buy your car? And one of these Gen Y kids types in, need to sell my car on YouTube. And up pops a video from your store saying, I want to buy your car. That's what this is all about. The big buzz, Facebook, all the social media that's out there. Well, if you have somebody that you bought a car from, how about asking them if they have a Facebook page and asking them to tell their friends, hey, anybody got a car to sell? Mike's Motors is buying cars, and boy, I got more than I thought I could get for it. Or if you have your own Facebook page and you do a transaction with a customer, ask them to go on there, like you, and talk about the experience they had selling their car to you. See, there's a big change here. It's not buying a car from you, it's selling a car to you. But every one of those sales equals an opportunity for you to sell a car to another customer. Don't neglect the service drive, conversations with customers. I'm curious, you planning to drive or for a couple more years? Well, we're thinking of getting rid of it. Hey, we're looking for a car just like that. If you have a waiting room, there's a couple of dealers out there. They have a pretty big service department. They got a waiting room. They know what cars are coming in for service. They have a whiteboard sitting in the waiting room, and on the whiteboard it says, we need these cars. It just happens to be the cars that are coming in that day for service. But they're making lots of acquisitions that way. And don't forget your traditional media. There is still a place to deliver messages to consumers about the fact that you are willing and able to purchase their vehicles. Bless you. So build inventory by acquiring cars from your customers. Don't forget transparency. It makes that transaction easier on both sides. Documentation replaces negotiation. Inform, involve everyone at the dealership. Market will buy your car on all the places where your consumers can see them. So my last question to you as we wrap this up, it's very simple. What are you going to do first? And I'll let you think about that for the next couple of days here at the conference.